Thank you for joining me again this beautiful, beautiful Saturday. I think it's April 29th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and we're getting the driver's side, which is the heavily rusted side of the dump bed. We're going to go ahead and proceed. We're going to use the method here, what they call the hairspray technique. Many here on YouTube do that very well and teach it very well. I'm just kind of going to experiment along the way. Before I shoot the coat of hairspray, onto my dump bed, I already shot it with rust color, and what I used was sorry about that, but I really was impressed with this color, with this primer, and it left almost a semi-gloss finish when it was done. You didn't have to add any water or any lacquer thinner or anything. Straight out of the bottle. I've had this bottle for a while now. It has not dried. So and it's a Vallejo product. So mixtures of formulas of all their paints and weathering products, you come up with different results as far as weathering, as far as the bottle starting to dry up while on the shelf, on your shelf. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it because I don't have a clue and I don't want to spend days and days of my life investigating it. But this stuff here was gosh darn impressive. So I wanted to stop and share that with you since I've been knocking their products. I left almost semi-gloss finish on this. I've already added my different. Let's get the lights. I've already added my different oil colors and started to thin it down. And I wanted to give it not just a plain solid rust color and then the hairspray and then the white and then the chipping or the peeling of the paint. I wanted to mix in some textures. The phrase, the two words I always love to use, you never use them anywhere else in life, but we use them here in the hobby, or I'm starting to use it, is the tonal variation as opposed to the rich tonal variation as opposed to just one solid rust color across the board. Just to give, hopefully, the finished product a little bit more warmth, so to speak. So let's go ahead. We're going to work on this guy here today on camera. Let's go ahead and start that process right now while I set everything up for us. I never ever shoot videos sitting down. I always do it standing up. On those rare occasions, and this is one of them, we're going to go ahead. So just your typical standard Windsor and Newton, in this case Winton oil colors that you use for weathering, painting, for giving that rich warmth color to an otherwise two-dimensional painting or drawing. I never believed in that stuff until I started watching the Armor guys. Weather their armor tanks exclusively with that method and with tremendous results. So let's get some light on here as best we can. Okay, I think that's as best we're gonna get. So let's start here. What we're gonna do, and it may appear a little silly, You're first going to fill a little cup with some mineral spirits. That's what we're going to use to draw down whatever we apply to the model. If you can see here, I've already applied some cadmium red hue, some cadmium yellow pale hue, believe it or not, some cerulean blue hue. That's how it's pronounced. And the blue's right there. It seems silly to apply these colors. This is mainly what's called, they call this method, we're going to use a good chunk, but not entirely that method. We're going to use a portion of what they call the dot filter method, I think is what it's called. So let's go ahead. We're learning together. We're experimenting together on an AMT Freightliner dump truck kit. So we're going to go ahead and grab, let's soak our brush a little bit in the mineral spirits. We're going to go ahead and grab, I like to use a stiff brush for picking up the paint and smearing them together. Maybe apply it on the model real quick. Then I go to a soft, wider brush that I'm going to soak in the mineral spirits to draw down our color. I don't know if you can tell right there. I'll zoom in right now. But this is how I applied it, and we're already starting to bring it down, including the blue. So moist, stiff brush. It's just to grab the color. And let's say I'm going to put it right about here and in here. So just random. The result at the end is I want to see just a rich texture of not just one solid rust color, but rather a tonal variation, a human, very warm spread of colors. And we'll thin them down as much as possible so they're almost not invisible. They're almost not visible again. So it's like almost like you're defeating the purpose. But that's what it appears like at first glance. We wipe off our brush, clean it in the mineral spirits, come back and pick up some more of this yellow color. We're going to apply it right there, and right here, and right here. Let's put some right about here, here, and here. But mainly for what I'm going for is these center panels. Since we're here, let's grab a little bit more. Clean that brush. Let's grab a little bit more, I want to say, of this brown. A little bit more. This thing right here. So let's put some color right there, right here, right here. And that's why it's called the dot filter method, because it's a bunch of colored dots. You're gonna thin them down, wash them down in your paint thinner, and it brings what you're trying to work on kind of to life. What I'm about to do here is very, very, very relaxing. I'll tell you what, man, I am tighter than a drum. I'm about to pop. My head is about to explode. Just the stress at work, reconfiguring new processes, programs, methods, coming up with new methods, coming up with an idea and clashing with a fellow co-worker with another good idea, or your best friend at work. And then it's now you're people could say it's banter, back and forth banter, but no, it starts to get to the point of you're arguing back and forth. You leave those meetings, I'm leaving those meetings with a bad taste in my mouth. great good is gonna come from them, but it takes a toll. I mean, it's really, really beating the freaking shit out of me inside. I can't describe it any more than that without getting banned here on YouTube. But thank God this project came along right at this time. This is the most soothing, relaxing thing you can do in modeling, and we're gonna do it together. I'm gonna share it. I keep the camera on. I wasn't planning on doing that, but we're here. But I'll tell you what, man. You you as an adult, all the stuff we go through, and the ups and the downs, and the stress and the worries, and whether you're married or you have your partner or not. Now you're doing it on, you're single on your own, um, and that's another big stress. It My brother asked me, my older brother asked me the other day. He goes, he almost implied, then why am I wasting all my time playing with models? And I told him I'm not wasting all my time playing with models. The break I can catch here and there when I can relax, this is what I do to unwind. I don't do it all the time. If I did it every day after work, I would get burned out pretty quick. Uh, that's what people perceive that we're doing here. They don't have a clue. That's fine. I'm not asking them to. But I guess I'm talking to you. Really, I'm talking to you directly on the camera. But especially to those of you who kind of know what I'm talking about here. And the stress and the pressure can come from anything. It could just come from watching today's newscasts in the evening of all the wacky shit that's being allowed to happen in the country with um, horrible consequences. And just because there's nobody there to say, hey, don't do that. Whether it's right or wrong is not the case. What I'm telling you, just watching the news, watching that is stress unto itself. My ex, Dory, she hasn't worked in 5 years. She destroyed her back at work. And the insurance has been paying her salary for 5 years. She's been at home for 5 years. And I'm sure people would say, oh, man, you got it made. Yeah. Trust me, there's stress in that. I talked to her. There's stress in that in itself. So let's share this. I'll be working on this off and on into the evening. Let me share this stress-free, enjoyable part of the hobby. And why is my AMT Freightliner project grinding to a halt at the weathering stage? Because when I slow down is when I come out with some beautiful, beautiful results. I just did that this morning. It's done. We'll work on this side here. When it's dry and we finish this side, we'll address the rear dump door. We'll weather underneath the dump it just a little tiny bit, and we can call that a day. So you're gonna soak your brush. This is now a wider, very soft brush. We're gonna clean off or blot off the excess mineral spirits. All right. So we're gonna draw down just like water, just like rainwater. But actually, no. These center pieces, I want them to be a little bit brighter in the center, kind of like the sun hits that area. So we're just gonna mix the colors in a circular pattern. The wonderful thing about oils, then we clean it on our napkin. We go back, we dunk it in the mineral spirits again. The wonderful thing about doing this with oils is you can't make a mistake. If you do, you go back with some more mineral spirits and you clean it up, clean it off. You could go back days and days and days using oil paints, using artist oil paints and mineral spirit. You can literally go back after a couple weeks and go back and clean it off. So we'll let that sit there for a little while. Let's just work on one at a time here on camera. Let's work on these two right here. Let's also bring these guys down. Now I have that ambient music in the background playing right now. Usually what I got going is some sort of a documentary or my classic rock playing on YouTube in the background. Occasionally I'll rent a movie and watch it in the background, but it tends to be, you're going to rent a movie you want to see. It tends to be a little bit distracting. But hell, tell you what. Normally, this is what I listen to. Well, not that, but. So just as long as it's not nothing that's going to draw your attention away from what you're doing.
Toward the end of France's dalliance with the Jeune École, French naval thinking was looking at the problem of commerce raiding with cruisers in a world where the Royal Navy existed. The fundamental issue was that all previous cruisers that they'd built were either too slow to decline combat with the faster ships in the British fleet, or else, if they were a bit quicker, they carried a relatively modest armament. In either case, a raider
we'll draw this piece down here like if it's more like a rainwater type rust effect. Keep in mind all this is going to be covered in white paint. About 85% will be removed, and so you're going to have color underneath that white paint, or different colors or different tonal variations.
And well protected enough that such a conflict wouldn't also cause the ship to have to return for maintenance
throughout the length of the bed.
This sounds like a familiar line of reasoning. This is exactly the same course of thought that would drive the construction of the USS Olympia. Indeed, both that ship and this one would be laid down in the same year, 1888. But the French vessel was a little bit further down this line of thinking. Although a fraction slower than her American compatriot at 20 knots, courtesy of 13,500.
Let's work on this blue dot here. People might think, why are you using blue? That's a weird color. That's what I used to think. But let's just play with that a little bit.
Displacing about 6,300 tons normally, compared to about 5,600 tons on the American ship. Although her almost 6,700 ton deep load displacement...
I carried over some of that blue, it came over here, and that's not a problem. That's actually all right. That's a neat effect.
Her armament consisted of a wide variety of weapons. A pair of single 194mm or 7.6-inch guns, mounted somewhat unusually in a pair of amidships...
Now, as the model dries, it's going to take on a very flat finish, especially where the oils or the mineral spirit touched paint, which is a fantastic look. And all these streaks, all these colors are going to just pop out in a different way. Not in a wet way, but in a dry way, if I can describe it that way. But it gets to be stunning.
This gave a theoretical heavy broadside of 4 6.4-inch and 1 7.6-inch guns, but also a theoretical...
I remember, if I don't like it, I can come back a week or two, up to a week or two or more. So mineral spirits, and adjust it take it off, add some more.
4 single 65mm guns were also fitted, 2 one deck above the 194mm guns, and 2 at the aft end of the superstructure, firing over the aft 164mm wing-mounted gun turrets. For anti-torpedo boat work, 8 single 47mm and a similar number of 37mm cannons were fitted. The 47mm were in sets of 4 on the 2 large masts.
I'll tell you what, why don't we do a two-parter right now? Let's work on this entire bed. We'll shut the video off. We'll finish it on the second part. We'll let it dry with some air, and I can show you how it looks when it's all done. If it's something you think you may want to try down the road on your AMT products, at least you have me to go by or others. Tell you what, I do recommend it.
Armor came courtesy of a 100mm or 3.9
Just jump straight right here.
Armor protecting the full length of the hull. A turtleback protective deck, 20mm thick, seating on top of 10mm of plating for a total effective thickness of about an inch, covered the magazines and machinery, joining the armor belt at its lowest edge, about 4 to 5 feet below the waterline. Beneath this, but above the machinery spaces,
when I take the brush off camera, it's because I'm either cleaning it or dunking it in this, or combination of both, constantly.
The turrets had the same armor thickness as the belt. Laid down in July 1888 and launched in October 1890, problems with the quality of the armor plate and the explosion of a boiler led to delays, which included replacing the defective boilers, and so she wasn't commissioned until 1895, with a rather distinctive and very French bow profile. Never quite happy with the ship, the French Navy sent her back to Brest in 1902 for reconstruction, which changed out the boilers again, which necessitated adding a third funnel, and that forced the redistribution of her anti-torpedo boat guns as the main mast aft.
Keep in mind, this whole wet area is going to dry flat,
Somehow,
and it's going to look totally different.
The ship 2 knots slower, and she was promptly placed in reserve. She was due to be scrapped in 1910 and was badly rusting out when Peru offered to buy her after repairs were made. Reconditioned, the ship was renamed Comandante Aguirre in 1912, and after the first of 3 installments were paid, she was transferred to the Peruvian Navy. But when the threat that she'd been purchased to counter ended up being sold elsewhere, the ship ended up being left in France. She was briefly considered for service in World War I, but was thought to
Let's
be
add
too
a little bit more
obsolete,
yellow
and so
right
at the
down
end
the
of
middle
that
here.
war, having been formally returned to French control, she was renamed.
Remember, if you do too much and you think you made a mistake,
and turned into a
you can
freighter.
come back,
After extensive
dunk it in
remodeling,
some
she
mineral
served in her new
spirits,
role as a collier in 1920,
and
but a combination of engine breakdowns and fires in her hold meant that this would also
See that?
be her last mercantile voyage. The ship being towed back to Antwerp and sold in 1923, final scrapping. However troubled her life was, her legacy as one of, if not the first modern armoured cruiser would be incredibly important, given how many armoured cruisers would subsequently be built, and just where that line eventually led.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pink post for dry dock questions.
so where do you think we're going to go with that blue color there? Okay, I see that blue color. Anyways, I'm going to keep playing with this probably another 15 minutes here. We'll finish her up. Well, hell, we'll do it on part 2, right? All right, guys, join me for part 2. Why don't you guys go take a break, take an intermission, go smoke a cigarette, go grab a sandwich, call your girlfriend, check your emails, whatever you got to do. And we'll meet back here in 20 minutes for part 2.